This real-life account of a bizarre paranormal occurrence was reported by Russian princess Marina Chavchavadze in 1936 to the authors of True Ghost Stories. The strange and terrifying encounter had received widespread publicity and caused a stir in pre-war St. Petersburg. A haunted house on Vasilyevsky Island in St. Petersburg, Russia, had been unoccupied for many years and held a sinister reputation. However, two students who scoffed at superstition and were wanting to debunk the supernatural legend decided to spend the night there. The owner of the house was keen to reinstate its property value on the selling or letting market and gladly gave permission to the paranormal investigators to stay as long as they liked. He arranged for a fire to be lit in what was known as the haunted room and supplied 2 candles and a table for the overnight stakeout. Food, wine, and a stack of candles were also provided. The first student to arrive was a young man named Carl, who unlocked the front door and entered the dark hallway, flashing his electric torch around. He could hear singing from upstairs and recognised his friend Piotr's voice, accompanied by strangely distorted echo. He assured himself that his friend was keeping up his spirits, even when the echo suddenly started to radiate a malignant kind of ambience throughout the house. Carl went upstairs and entered the room from where the voice came to find the comfort of a roaring fire, a table set for supper, and a marble side buffet on which stood blazing candlesticks. Taking off his heavy overcoat, Carl asked Piotr why he had arrived early, to which he replied that he wanted to get in touch with the unseen. This he said he had done to some extent, at which point he began to sing again, but in a strangely aggressive way. Carl suggested that the pair eat, also asking Piotr in what language he had been singing, as he had not understood a word. Piotr replied, "Naturally not," while smiling in a wicked manner. Carl felt momentarily perplexed that his friend was not his usual light-hearted self. Their conversation as they ate was equally confusing. Piotr began to attack their plan to disturb what he called well-buried evil because of senseless curiosity. He claimed that the house might belong to the being who is worshipped through fear and whose strength lies in destruction, in other words, the devil. His mood became even darker as he suggested a toast and offering to the evil being, tossing a glass of red wine on the fire. Still with the cruel mocking smile, he rose from his chair and condemned Carl for his naivety in trying to expose and destroy the dark forces which are older than time. His stunned friend was by now frozen in fear, and the last thing Carl remembered was Piotr's tiger-like spring and clutching fingers which burnt like acid around his neck. He was then plunged into darkness. The next morning, both Carl and Piotr were absent from the university. When they then missed an important noonday lecture, some of their fellow students, who were aware of their project, decided to go and seek the ghost hunters at the haunted house. To their disappointment, there was nothing remarkable or even frightening about the place. On venturing upstairs, they found the cold ash of the fire and burnt-out candles, but soon noticed an overturned table, broken plates, and food strewn across the floor. The spilt wine looked like a stream of congealed blood. They were then shocked to see that something lay under the mess. It was Carl, perhaps in a dead faint or worse. While 2 of the students tried to bring him around, the others ran up the stairs to see if Piotr was hiding somewhere. They finally concluded that Piotr had suddenly gone mad and attacked Carl in a frenzy. They took the speechless Carl home and decided to make inquiries at Piotr's lodgings, then, if necessary, report the incident to the police. Carl's family, who knew the reputation of the haunted house, now felt vindicated in their dire warnings to the devastated youth. At Piotr's lodgings, the students were met by his landlady, who told them that he was heavily asleep. He had arrived home at 2 p.m. the previous day, collapsed into bed, and not got up since. Sure enough, the young men found him sound asleep and snoring loudly. On being shaken awake, Piotr was astonished to hear their account of what had been found at the house. Karl's collapsed form and evidence of two people having eaten together. He vowed that he had never left his lodgings and that his landlady could confirm it. He had forgotten his appointment with Karl and remembered feeling strangely tired, as if he were drugged, when he had returned for lunch the day before. He had become so drowsy that he had collapsed into his bed. He had never given Karl and the haunted house a single thought, and swore that if there had been two people at supper, the second was definitely not him. Piotr's 28-hour alibi was confirmed by his landlady, her servant, and a friend who had dropped by in the evening. On the other hand, Karl's incredible story was also confirmed by the condition of the supper room, his own demoralised and dishevelled state, and the statements of those who found him. Strangest of all, the imprints on his throat could never have been made by Piotr's stubby and rather pudgy little hand. The mystery of this authentic story of the supernatural has remained unsolved. It created a huge amount of debate and speculation in St. Petersburg early last century, but no clue was ever found as to the identity of Karl's supper companion. The owner of the haunted house eventually gave up on trying to make it marketable and decided to have it demolished. It was completely razed to the ground, with not even one stone left to offer any kind of habitation to the mysterious evil entities.